Okay, our next speaker is Martha. Here's Martha.
So, I had just walked into my apartment. It was November, it was hot in 2017, and I was about to make myself a gin and tonic and sit down to watch some TV when all of a sudden I heard this huge scream, and it was coming from a woman's voice. And it wasn't a scary scream or a bad scream, it was joyful and celebratory. And suddenly I knew. I knew right away. Robert Mugabe had resigned. And I opened my door and I looked down and I saw that there were tons of people beginning to gather in the streets. People were screaming and dancing. And I wanted to be part of that celebration. So I ran down the stairs of my apartment building and I started to join in and asking questions. How did you hear? What happened? Can you believe it? And this man, out of nowhere, just looks at me right in my eye and says, "But you're free now, Martha. You're free now." Because it was just a few weeks earlier that I was at Chikurubi Female Prison facing charges for undermining the authority of the president and attempting to overthrow the government. And I had been standing in line wearing this turquoise dress, which is really more like a muumuu or a frock. And I was waiting for them to do our evening lockup. So we all queue outside the doors, waiting for them to check us before you go in. And actually, I was doing okay. My spirit was pretty good. Things were actually all right, all things considered. When all of a sudden in Shona, one of the female guards said something to my cellmates. And my cellmate looked at me, and her expression went from otherwise okay to suddenly very, very fearful and concerned. And I looked around at all the other women standing there, and they all had a similar expression, and I knew something had just gone really, really wrong. So I asked them, what happened? What are they saying? And they explained to me that I was being moved from Chikurubi Female Prison to the maximum prison, where there's actually never normally any female prisoners at all. So I was instructed to go get my belongings and move all of my stuff to the front gate of the prison. So I did as I was told. All the other women were kind of tucked in for the night. I get my stuff and I walked out to the front gate. And along the way, I asked the female guards, what have I done wrong? I've been following all of your rules. I've done everything you've told me. I don't understand why you're moving me. And they didn't respond with anything. And I said, but why are you moving me right now? Couldn't you have moved me this morning? Why is it that now that the sun is setting, now that I can't call my lawyers or I can't call the embassy, now all of a sudden is when you want to move me? And again, they kind of just looked at me with these blank stares and explained that, the orders were coming from above. This wasn't something that they could control. So I sat down outside their offices, which is just kind of like a regular stoop. And for the first time, I think the reality of the situation had really hit me. Otherwise, I had kind of been sheltered a bit. I'm American, I'm white, I'm in prison, I'm getting food delivered all the time, I have books, I'm okay. But suddenly, the fact that they wanted to move me at this time without any consultation with my lawyers, it made me really realize things are serious. They're not kidding anymore. And something has happened to make them really fear me, and I don't understand why. And I sat there on the stoop and I watched the beautiful Zimbabwean sunset, and I just panicked. For the first time, tears started to form in my eyes, and I thought, wow, there are so many people in this country who have been through this exact process, who have been in situations where the government feared them, and their response was to pick them up, to move them at night, to disappear them, to do all sorts of things. And why is it all of a sudden that they wanted to do this to me now? So I really suddenly felt, my heart is pounding, but I have to still bite my tongue and kind of move on. So with all of my belongings, I got in the truck and I went up the hill to Chikurubi Maximum Prison, which is not at all like the female prison that I was at. Unlike kind of having a surrounded fence, there's this cement fortress with huge heavy doors and huge thick walls. And they instructed me to go into the building through several sets of doors, up around a very tight, small staircase, all the way to the top where there's this very, very small area that's dedicated for female prisoners at maximum, and it's hardly ever used. So when we entered, it was dusty and filthy, and they showed me to my very small cell, which has no windows and has 3 or 4 gates just actually to get even in there. And there's a big cement block where you're supposed to sleep, and at the very top of your bed, there's a toilet, which obviously has no running water or anything. And I was told to stay there for the night. And along with me, they had brought these 2 other female prisoners. And in the night, we had all kind of really appreciated the seriousness of this issue. And as I tried to sleep, I did what I had done the nights previously, which is I thought of this magical reunion that I was hoping to have with my family and with my boyfriend, where I would get hugs and we would laugh, and this would all be over. And the woman next to me started to sing the most beautiful song in Shona I've ever heard. And it was such a heavy moment with no air in this building, no nothing. It all finally felt as serious as it actually was. And a few days later, I was released. But unlike what I had imagined every single night falling to sleep, which is that there would be this magical reunion with my friends and family, the US Embassy came and picked me up in this big SUV and rushed me away. All my friends were over there hanging out, but I was moved quickly in the opposite direction. And they told me very quickly that I was not going to be living the life that I had lived before I was arrested. I was not to see or talk to any Zimbabweans. I was not to leave my apartment. I was having a security guard placed outside my door, who I'm not sure was there to keep me safe or to keep me in. And the best part of all was that they were, my sister, my big sister, was flying out to babysit me, which is quite typical of our relationship. I'm sure many of you have big siblings who you know can quite quickly change your mind about how things should be. So my sister came and we quite quickly reverted to our childhood ways. We did a lot of fake dinner parties, we colored, we played games, we fought a ton for the first time in years. And part of it was, she really wanted me to follow these rules of the US Embassy, and I really did not. I didn't understand what was so serious. And I felt that I should at least be allowed to see my boyfriend or talk to a few friends. But it's not that I didn't understand as well what she was going through. My family had just been through hell. And for her, going out to a dinner or going to go see a friend isn't worth the risk of what could possibly happen to me again. So it was a really tough time for us as sisters and a time in which we also bonded. But throughout this exact time is also when things in the country were changing quite dramatically. The new dispensation had just stepped in. The tide and the mood around my particular case had kind of shifted, right? There's a new president now, so who cares what she said about the old one? And I was actually taken off remand, so my charges have not been dropped to this day. But I was given back my passport, which gave me the ability to go home. So I did. We went home for a few weeks, and I was able to hug my family and talk to my friends. But I still was very adamant about coming back to Zimbabwe. I'm very stubborn as a person, but also I really felt that this is my home now, and I didn't want them to win, by having me move to a different country. So I came back, and it wasn't until I was at the Joburg airport, waiting for my security check-in, that I suddenly really felt the reality of the situation, and I started sweating, and I think I had my first panic attack. I couldn't breathe, and I realized how scared I was to be coming back to a place after what I had gone through. But when I dug a little deeper, I realized that also it wasn't the fear for myself in terms of me getting arrested again or something like that. It was the idea that I would put my family and the people who love me through this kind of painful experience again, that I would be the one to cause the big uproar again. And that's still how it is, And I think the crazy part of it all is that I'm actually innocent. I never said anything about the president, never sent the tweet that they said that I tweeted, or attempted to overthrow the whole government. So it's unfortunate that at the end of the day, they got what they wanted, right? They have a more fearful me, a more subdued me, and there's not really much I can do about it. So when I think back to that day, when that man looked at me and said, Martha, you're free now, it actually was probably the last time that I felt truly free, that light childhood run through the woods free. And I don't think I'm the only one in this country to feel that way about that day. And I just hope that I'll be able to find it again soon. Thank you.